Welcome back to the Arise Exchange here on Arise News. Inflation in Nigeria, well, it's rising year on year. 28-year high, 33.95% in May. However, on the flip side, month-on-month inflation, well, that has been decelerating. So what do we make of the divergence? What does it mean for the average Nigerian on the street? What does it mean for investors in terms of the real rate of return? All that, yeah, there it is. There's the month-on-month. Yes, exactly. So minus rural inflation. Yeah, rural inflation was the only, as far as month-on-month, the only subsector there or metric that actually increased. Every other one across the board, headline, food, core, urban, they all decelerated. So pretty interesting there. Let's talk to Dr. Muda Yusuf, CEO of the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, to get his thoughts. Dr. Muda Yusuf, it's always great to have you on the show. Good evening to you, sir. Thanks for joining us. What do you make of the inflation figures? Will you be focused more on year that keeps climbing, or month on month that's decelerating?
Well, the inflation situation has been very intractable, and it's one of the biggest concerns that the citizens and even the government and policymakers worry about a great deal. If you talk about month-on-month deceleration, that will not mean much, to the average citizen. To the citizen, what matters is that the cost of food, the cost of basic items are becoming much more expensive by the day. And the situation in this month particularly, especially with respect to food inflation, even got to a level that, made a lot of people to worry. So it's a major issue. But because inflation is about price, as economists, when we have any conversation about pricing, we cannot run away from the concept of demand and supply. I know for many citizens, they are tired of this demand and supply analysis. But from an economic point of view, there is no other way to analyze what is happening around the prices of goods and services. So what we are dealing with currently is largely a supply side problem. Supply side issues arising from the disruption of our agricultural production. Because don't forget, the food inflation is the most critical component of this inflation basket. Because food inflation is 40.66%, core inflation is about 27%, headline inflation is about 34%. So the food inflation is the most challenging, and from a social and poverty point of view, the food inflation is the most critical, even from a governance and political point of view. And these are driven largely by supply side issues. I mentioned the issues of the disruption arising from the problem of insecurity. That has been a major problem which we have been struggling with. There is the issue also on the supply side of the seasonality of some of this production. We haven't got to the level yet where we have all year round farming, dry season farming. We are not there yet. So when you have a combination of this disruption arising from insecurity with the problem of seasonality as we experienced this month, especially during this festive season, you can imagine how challenging the situation is. Then you have the issue also on the supply side of the problem of transportation. Moving goods from one point to the other. Most of the farmers, most of those in the marketplace complain a whole lot about this issue of transportation and the cost of transportation. Then you have other tangential issues of climate change. You have issues around the global dimension of inflation, because globally, we are dealing with inflation problem. Then we have the big issue of the forex. Forex depreciation has a serious pass-through effect on inflation, and it's very systemic, affecting practically all sectors. So these are issues on the supply side. On the demand side, because of the sharp depreciation in the currency, a lot of our products have become now much cheaper, whether agricultural products or even manufactured products, have become much cheaper for our neighboring countries. Practically all the countries around us are using CFA, apart from Ghana and smaller countries like Sierra Leone and Gambia. All others are using CFA, even Cameroon. And the CFA has appreciated almost over 100% over the last 1 to 2 years against the Naira, which means that the Naira has depreciated massively against the CFA. And this is the region, the sub-region in which we are. So a lot of outflows in terms of our agricultural products and some other manufactured goods are going out of the country. And for the few that are coming in, because people have said open the border, goods will come in cheaply, but because these goods are also priced in CFA, when they come into the country, they are also very expensive. So the forex issue is also a major issue, on the demand side. So basically, we situate these things within the demand and the supply context. And if you must deal with it, if you must tackle it, this is the framework, this is the context in which we can begin to deploy solutions to it. So that is my view about what is happening. It's unfortunate that the situation is what it is. It's an intractable problem, but it's something that I believe we can deal with.
Do you think that we can deal with it within a reasonable amount of time? This is already half year 2024. Although there have been some voices that are saying they see inflation year on year peaking in June. I don't know if you share in that sentiment, but primarily, do you think that there is enough that can be done maybe this year, or do we look to next year to start seeing solutions put forward quickly enough?
Well, from a technical point of view, from maybe July, the factor of base effect is likely to kick in. So if the factor of the base effect of the computation of inflation kicks in, we are likely to begin to see a deceleration. But whether that will matter in terms of welfare is a different thing. So the base effect is something that is likely we may begin to experience a deceleration, perhaps from July. But for June, from what we experienced in June, June has not been a particularly good month for inflation. So I agree with you. We may see it peaking in June, then from July, because of the base effect, one. The second possibility is the factor of seasonality. Now, from July, we may begin to see some harvest and all this problem of scarcity. This seasonality factor may also come in positively. Because when we now begin to see some harvest around some of these crops, food crops and other crops, that may help to cause a deceleration in inflation. So that is what I think can happen. But beyond that, we need to see some other measures, particularly on the fiscal side. Not too long ago, there was this document that was flying around about the Inflation Reduction and Price Stability Presidential Order. It was a draft. Although the Special Advisor on Information has said that it was not authorized, it was leaked. But the content of that presidential order, which is largely about fiscal policy measures, has some very interesting provisions to address this issue of inflation using fiscal policy measures. There's a whole lot of recommendations there around reduction of import duty, around relaxation of the importation of rice paddy, around the relaxation of some taxes, tax rebates and all of that for pharmaceutical products, for food processing companies, and so on and so forth. So if we see an activation of that, because so far, what we have been struggling with to deal with inflation is these monetary policy instruments, and we are not making any headway. So if we are able to unlock the fiscal policy measures to deal with these issues, supporting those who are in production with fiscal policy measures, I think we'll be getting somewhere. Of course, we also have issues of insecurity, structural issues. those are not things that you can deal with immediately. That is on the federal government side. But those are the things I think we can do. And we should also not entirely federalize this inflation conversation. The subnationals have a role to play. Because most times when we discuss the economy, we hardly talk about the subnationals. At the federal level, the government has a lot to do in terms of fiscal policy measures, in terms of maybe monetary policy measures to bring down the cost of funds, in terms of insecurity, to deal with security issues. But the subnationals have a responsibility to provide direct support to the farming population. Equipment, fertilizers, seedlings, and all of these things. It is for the subnationals to also do. I mean, we are seeing some examples like what we saw in Niger State and maybe Kebbi. Others should come on board and also do something. Rural roads and all of that. That complementary action needs to also be put on the table to be able to deal with this problem.
Point well made. Dr. Muda Yusuf, head of the Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise, we thank you so much for your time to dimension this inflation issue in Nigeria, which is pressing and top priority. Thank you so much.